And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this community conversation in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. We're so happy to be joined by two queens today who we're going to share a little bit more information about. But, you know, this mental health awareness community conversation really is to just share light, offer some advice, raise awareness, and just share encouragement during these unprecedented times we're all living through. My name is Joy Gebresilassie. I'll be your host for today. And we have two special guests. We have Dr. Kensa Gunter and Mona Abraham. So hello, ladies. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Thank you all for being here. We're so happy to have you all here with us. I go back to Georgia Tech with both of them, so it's sort of a full circle moment today. But I just want to share their bios briefly, and then we'll get right into some of the questions. If you're out there and you have a question, make sure to drop it in the comments. We will be able to see it on our end here. And then also, if you just want to share a message of encouragement wherever you are, go ahead and just drop that comment. Let us know what city you're tuning in from, what state, what country you're tuning in from. Drop some hearts. Let's all spread the love together. So Dr. Gunter is a licensed psychologist and certified mental health performance consultant. She provides mental health performance and consultation services to athletes, teams, and organizations. She also is the president-elect for the Association for Applied Sports Psychology, psychology, doing wonderful things there. And we will have her information if you want to stay connected and, of course, tap in as well. And Mona she was born and raised in Northeast Georgia to a family of Ethiopian immigrants. She later went on to get her business degree in business administration at Georgia Tech. She's now currently a third-year medical student at the Medical College of Georgia. And she'll share some of her story, but she shares how during her upbringing, she struggled with anxiety, depression, grief, racism, and all the typical stressors of growing up as a first-generation American. And through therapy, mediation, and yoga, she's been able to work through many of these difficulties and become a strong advocate for mental health and wellness. So we're so thankful to have both of you here. I would love to just pass it over to you both to just share a quick introduction and also just share, why you've become so passionate about being a mental health advocate and really helping in this area.
Sure. So I'll start. So thank you again for the invitation to be here. I think any opportunity to talk about mental health and elevate these conversations is really, really important. I think that in the current climate that we're in with this pandemic, a lot of people have become much more aware of the importance of attending to their mental health. And one of the things that I think is important to clarify is, 1 in 5 adults in the United States in any given year have mental illness, but we all have mental health. And so that's a part of why I think it's so important, is because it's something that is salient for all of us and something that we can work to improve, right? But we have to be aware and willing to be vulnerable in that way, to look at ourselves, look at how we're doing mentally, and then kind of do things to help promote a healthier way of being. For me, my interest started in undergrad. When I took my first Psych 101 class, I love the idea of trying to figure out what makes people tick, trying to understand behavior. And now I really love the idea of trying to help people kind of get out of their own way as they're navigating their journeys in life and helping them move in the directions that they want to go. So that's really why I'm here.
Oh, that's awesome. So glad you're here. What about you?
Oh, I love that. So my interest in mental health started really early for me. Just kind of seeing people close to me, family members dealing with mental illness, and also just kind of seeing how there was such a stigma in Ethiopian culture specifically, and kind of seeing how both mental illness and that stigma had such an impact on people that I really cared about. And so that was kind of my first introduction to mental health and mental illness. And kind of my introduction to medicine as well. And then later on in life, I lost my father when I was, it was about 4 years ago. And that was kind of my first experience with my own issues with mental health, just dealing with grief. And then throughout medical school, just kind of dealing with a lot of just the typical stressors of being in medical school are like very anxiety provoking. And so for me, that really pushed me to go into therapy and kind of try to help myself. And it's literally changed my entire life in every area of my life. And ever since that, I've just kind of been really passionate about it and just want to share my experience with people because like you were saying, I think vulnerability is so important. And so that's kind of how I entered this little realm.
Wow. Just such a touching story, and two different, paths of how you both sort of, entered this area. And I thank you both for being here and for sharing your story. And I'm just sending a lot of love to both of you and to everyone who is tuning in right now. I see that we have people from Philly, we have people from Georgia, we have people from Atlanta, Vegas. So yeah, just continue letting us know, drop your love and let us know where you're tuning in from. So with both of you, Dr. Gunter, you did mention that this pandemic, right? All of us are going through this together. And, and Mona, even just sharing your family story, like I know it can be tough, right? During just holidays and during, just in general, right? So how do you both sort of personally push through these tough times? And, obviously in addition to therapy, which we're going to talk a lot more about as the conversation goes on, but how do you two both stay up during these times?
I mean, I think for me, my support system is really, really important. So having people around me who are encouraging, uplifting, and who I can go to, regardless of how I'm feeling. So if I'm having a down day, I can go to them. If I'm feeling good, I can go to them. But I can trust that they're going to be consistent and solid in whatever mood I happen to be in. I think the people around me really have been very important for me. The other thing for me is two things. Reading, because I really like to read and kind of escape into a fantasy world, and exercise. So moving, doing something physical has been, I've been much more intentional about incorporating that into my life, because I know for me, when I'm able to move, get outside, be in nature, of course, in a safe way, that really does help me to kind of recenter myself and feel grounded. So reading, exercise, and staying connected to my support system are really my go-to strategies for maintaining myself in my care.
I love that.
I'm like right on par with you, because I've been doing a lot of checking in. So I have my girlfriends, we have a little group text, and we do Wellness Wednesday, where we'll check in with each other, and everyone will kind of give an update on how their week has gone. And then I also do weekly Zooms with my cousins, and we meet on Saturdays. And so I feel like scheduling in that time, it kind of helps, because when you're really going through it, you're not going to reach out for help as easily. So for me, a lot of days, when I have my cousin Zoom, specifically this past Saturday, I was feeling like crap. I really did not feel good. I didn't want to talk to anybody, but I got on there with them, and it changed my entire day. It made me so much happier. And so that's been huge. And then I also been doing a lot of yoga and meditation, which I try to practice daily. I highly recommend both yoga and meditation to anybody watching this. And that's been my release.
Yeah. Both just really great tools that you all mentioned there. And I can relate to both of you all in that regard, just having that support system, and then also that go-to people that you can go to and just be yourself. You don't have to put on this face. You can, like I was telling y'all before we started, I've cried 10 times or more. And I know we've shared that experience here too, but it's just knowing that I can call up my girl, my best friend, and be like, and just cry and just be like, this is how I'm feeling. And it helps. It just helps to get it out. And on that note, why is it important to get it out? Why is it important to take advantage of tools like therapy, like counseling, from your experiences? We can start maybe with Mona and then go to Dr. Gunter.
For me, I think it's important because every emotion you have, I think especially strong emotions, they're not just casually released. A lot of times they get suppressed and they build up over time. And so I think therapy is a great space to just create an opportunity to release whatever you're feeling. And, you don't have to wait until you're at your lowest point in life to go to therapy. I think people have this misconception about it, but for me, it's helped me in my career. It's helped me in my personal relationships. And so I think it just creates this space to really evaluate yourself and make yourself the focus of your attention for that 1 hour, and really just unpack everything you're going through, because a lot of things are subconscious. A lot of things we do, we don't even realize we're doing. And so for me, I think that's been the biggest benefit for therapy, and one of the biggest reasons I recommend it to every single person. You do not have to be diagnosed with any you don't have to be diagnosed with a psychiatric disorder to go to therapy. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you. I mean, I agree 100%. What about you, Dr. Gunter?
Yeah, so I two things that come up for me. I liken it to our physical health, right? We go for annual checkups just to make sure that everything is okay, right? Now, we certainly go to the doctor when there's something wrong and we're having symptoms to let us know that we're ill, but we also go regularly to the dentist, to the doctor, to the eye doctor, just for checkups to make sure everything is okay. And I think the same thing can be said for therapy, and going to therapy can be utilized in the same way. It can be just a checkup because it's a very powerful thing to be seen and to be heard in a space without judgment. Yeah. And that's what therapy is designed to be. And so I think, to your point, Mona, like, you don't have to be in a crisis state to go and see someone, but there's benefit in bouncing ideas, thoughts off of someone who can have an objective perspective and kind of help you navigate and think through things, and kind of help you see a perspective that you may not be able to come up with on your own, right? And sometimes the people that are closest to us, they may think very similar to us. And so they may just agree with us, right? It's not all the time, but sometimes I think it's really nice to have a space that's dedicated for you, where you can do whatever you need to do, whether it's have coping skills, whether it's vent, whether it's work through past experiences. I mean, therapy really is a space that's designed for you to help you in whatever way you need so that you can move forward in a productive way in your life. So I think that's one of the benefits, or some of the benefits of therapy from my perspective.
Absolutely. So many benefits. For someone who's never been to therapy, I know some people in this chat, some of you all may go, some of you may have never gone. What does it look like? You know, what does that session look like? If you could maybe walk us through. Dr. Gunter, if you can start, obviously you do this with your practice and everything, and then move over to Mona and her experiences. So
the first thing I would say is it's a conversation. It truly is two people in a room. If we're talking about individual therapy, it's you in a room with a professional, and our entire purpose is to understand who you are so we can best understand what we can do to potentially help you out. And so it's a conversation where we are asking questions, and some of them may be difficult and invasive questions about your past experiences and about your current reality, all for the sole purpose of understanding who you are. Because therapy is really an individualized experience. And even though we go to school and we learn techniques and strategies and theoretical orientations that we use in our work, it truly is an individual experience. And for me, I want to know who I'm sitting across from. I want to hear their story from their lips, because that allows me to figure out what might be the most helpful strategies to help them. I also say it's two people, right? So yes, I'm a professional, but I'm also a person. So it's a human to another human having a conversation, trying to get a better understanding of who you are so we can figure out what pathway we need to take, strategies, skills, tools, resources, in order to help you in the way that you're asking for help.
How about you, Mona?
That was a wonderful explanation from the professional herself. As a person who's been to therapy, I can say, for me, to add to what she said, therapy also looks like auditioning therapists. So I went through I've seen 3 therapists before, and it took multiple times for me to find a therapist that I liked, which I found through my school student counseling services. And so for me, that looked like allowing at least 2 sessions with the therapist to see, like, if I, meshed with them and if they really understood me. And I found the most comfort when I was speaking to particularly a therapist of color. My therapist is a Black man. And so I think for me, that was a huge thing. So in regards to, in adding to what has already been said, I think just taking your time with finding the right therapist is also a very, very important step in initiating therapy.
Great. Absolutely. Hannah, can I add one more piece? Because I think this has to be stated, is when you go and see a therapist, it's a confidential experience. Like, everything that you share with that therapist is confidential. It stays in that room. And that's really the cornerstone of what allows us to do the work that we do. Because if you don't trust that you can come in and share what you need to share and it not be shared with others, then you're not going to trust us. And so I really want to reiterate that confidentiality is a huge part of that initial conversation, to let you know what confidentiality is, And also to let you know, there are times when we do have to break confidentiality. So if we have a concern of somebody hurting themselves or hurting somebody else, or if there's child abuse or elderly abuse happening, then by law, we have to break confidentiality. We tell you before we do any of that. But I think explaining to you that confidentiality is inherent in the process and that is discussed from day one is really important for people to know as well.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's very, very important in this conversation. And, I think it's interesting because, I think hopefully this conversation will help people who are on the border of just, they want to take that first step, but they're not sure like how to, or if they really should. And just listening to you all today, it's already been so encouraging and so insightful. What are those first steps that people would take though? I know Mona, you mentioned you found therapists in the school system, but how do you go about, finding the right one then?
So I think a good starting place for somebody who has never been to therapy is opening up to the people around you, because, you can get to the therapist and still not be able to open up about yourself. So I think a great first step, if you're not ready to go to therapy, is just pick up a phone and call somebody and start talking about how you feel. And then I think, how do you go about it? I looked on Psychology Today. That was, I guess, my first resource that I found. And if you go to psychologytoday.com, you can look for therapists in your region. And then you can also, I think, put in your insurance and see if it's covered through that. And you can specify a specific type of therapy. So there's trauma-based therapy, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not the professional here, but so I think that's a great resource there.
Okay, awesome.
I would echo Psychology Today because they do have the ability for you to kind of put in filters and things that you're interested in. So if you're looking for a therapist that focuses on a particular issue, as Mona said, if you're looking for a therapist that engages in a certain type of therapy, if you want to know what insurance they take, if you want to know, all of them have a brief bio, so you can see a brief description from the therapist perspective of how they like to work with people, and that gives you some information about them before you even make a phone call. And so I definitely echo that. Therapy for Black Girls also has a database that's really good. And if you go to their website, you can go to their Find a Provider or Find a Therapist search option there as well. And the same thing, you can look up therapists by state, and it will allow you to see who's in your area, and it has contact information so that you can then reach out to them and see if they're accepting new clients and then move forward with potentially scheduling an appointment.
Yeah, I love Therapy for Black Girls. There's so many good resources out there. And one thing that obviously comes with this process, as you all mentioned, is the insurance, right? You see what your insurance covers, what doesn't. How does it work with that from your experiences, and then what can someone do if their insurance doesn't cover it, or if they don't have insurance, how can people afford it who can't pay for it?
Yeah, I could sugarcoat it here and make it seem like therapy is super affordable for everybody and that insurance isn't an issue, but I wouldn't be being very real in the conversation. And so I think access to mental health care is one of the current barriers to people being able to seek the treatment that they need. There are some insurance companies, depending upon your plan, that do offer coverage, and there are other plans that don't. And so that's one of the first things. That's given or assuming that you have insurance, right? Because not everyone has insurance. So there are many providers that offer sliding scales, which basically means that they will see individuals at a discounted rate from their full rate. A lot of times that's based on the financial need and the resources that a person has, or if they don't have resources, it's working with that therapist to see whether or not they can offer a sliding scale. And sometimes you can see that on their website. People will indicate if they have sliding scale options available. There are also different community mental health centers that are usually sponsored by individual counties or cities, where individuals may be able to get discounted or low cost services. And that would just be a matter of looking up the mental health community resources in your area. So just kind of doing a Google search for mental health county or community resources and seeing what comes up, because there's no standard across jurisdictions for what that looks like. But it can really be, that can be the challenging piece. That really can be the challenging piece. And as I think about being in COVID, where people are experiencing increased financial instability, not knowing whether or not they're going to have jobs, losing jobs, whether you're seeing family members, friends, you might be experiencing that yourself, thinking about having money to pursue these resources. that can be challenging when you're thinking about rent and utilities versus therapy. Like, you know, balancing those priorities can be really difficult. But I would say, if you find a therapist that you feel like you would connect with, I would say reach out to them and ask if they have a sliding scale first. Don't allow what you see to deter you, because sometimes we can offer something if we know there's a need, even if it's not promoted in our website or our materials in which we advertise our services.
Wow, that's really good to know, that sliding scale. So make sure to write that down if you're taking notes out there. That's very important. And how about you, Mona? What have your experiences been like with, you know, payment side of things and insurance and all that?
So for the payment side, you know, like I said, I got my my therapy and my student counseling services, so it's covered through my tuition. So if you're a student, there's like no excuse, guys. You can go get therapy for the free, and they say there's a limited number of sessions, but they'll override it if you like go and you build a relationship and you genuinely need it. So yeah, if you're a student, definitely use that resource. A friend of mine who is also a therapist recommended Maven Clinic. I don't know if Dr. Gunter, if you've heard about that, but they have like virtual therapy, and so their rates are a little bit lower than other places. And then I know Talkspace is another platform that has virtual therapy. They're a little bit pricier than Maven Clinic. So if you Google Maven Clinic and Talkspace, you should be able to find those two.
Okay, and how do you spell Maven Clinic?
So MAVEN and then clinic.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that's good to know. I want to sort of take it into a different direction here, and we actually have a comment that I want to bring up to the screen to kind of get this topic going. But you know, someone mentioned the thing is, I think that therapy is frowned upon in the Habesha community. Habesha is a term used by many Ethiopians and Eritreans to describe that area in the region. And of course, in the broader Black community worldwide, it's frowned upon. So how do we work together to overcome the stigma? I know today, taking this step to create this conversation, again, thank you to both of you for being so open with us and sharing. What can we do? What can anyone doing right now that's watching? What can we all do to end the stigma and reduce it, or at least reduce it yet?
I think for my advice, I think I would say the first step is education. I think there's a large miseducation on mental illness within our community. I think people assume you can pray away mental illness, and that's just simply not the case. You know, if you study this topic, if you study mental disorders, a lot of them have a chemical imbalance in their brain. And so in the same way that if you had an issue with your heart or an issue with your kidneys, you would go to the doctor and you would get medication for it, like Dr. Gunter was saying. So, you know, if you have an issue with your brain, it's literally just another organ. And so I think people have this like misconception of what it is. So I think education is the first step. And also what we're doing here, Hannah, what you're doing is amazing. I think vulnerability is another huge step in just creating the space for that to happen and people to share their experiences. And I think from sharing my experience in my own circles has really made me feel safe enough to share it publicly. And so just create that space in your own circles and it'll have a ripple effect, I promise. Like, you know, like I was thanking my friends this morning for really just allowing us to share our experiences with each other. Because like I was saying, it just allowed me to feel comfortable sharing publicly. And so I think that's what we can do.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. What about you, Dr. Gunter?
Yeah, I would echo that. I think education is really important because we fear things that we don't know. And it's difficult to wrap our minds around something that we can't see. And you don't see therapy and you can't see when somebody's having a challenge emotionally necessarily, right? Like it's not a bruise, it's not a broken bone. There's not something that says, you can't look on the scan and say, this is what it is. And it's going to take 6 weeks to heal it. And then you're going to be good. Right? That's not how our emotions and our psychological health works. And I think because there are those unknown factors and it's not as clean cut as maybe a physical condition, that's what makes it difficult as well. And the stigma that exists is a real stigma. And most of the labels that have been associated with mental health are negative, right? A person is weak, they're crazy, they need medication, they need to be locked away, they can't function. Like there are all of these negative connotations and associations that have been put with mental illness. And so I think that's where the education piece comes into play. It's like I said at the very beginning, 1 in 5 people have mental illness. We all have mental health. And so it's thinking about how we can uplift our communities as it relates to mental health, right? And we can talk about it from a strength-based perspective. So things like developing your faith, practicing gratitude, practicing mindfulness exercises, those are all things that you can do to enhance your mental health, right? And those are things that I think all of our communities would likely encourage us to do. So in addition to that education, I think it's elevating these conversations and helping people understand that difference between mental illness and mental health. And it's also gonna take some time, right? It's not gonna happen overnight. I recognize there are generational differences when it comes to how people think about therapy and mental health. Like older generations, not something that they are familiar with. It's not something that they would necessarily think to utilize as a source of support. Younger generations, they're much more likely to at least entertain the idea, even if, whether they would go or not, that still is up for question, but they're at least more familiar with the concept and the idea. And so I think it is a combination of education, communication, and continuing to be vulnerable, as Mona has said a number of times, like really taking that risk to share your own personal experience. And you don't have to label it as this is my mental health experience, but just talking more freely about our emotions and our feelings and, what's going on when we have challenges in a psychological, mental, and relational standpoint just helps to normalize that conversation.
So beautiful. I feel so much healing in this conversation already, just listening to you all and taking this in. So thank you all so much for this. And you mentioned, Dr. Gunter, I love the point where you were like, 1 in 5 have a mental health condition, but all of us have mental health. I think that is so, so, so important. And you started sort of talking about ways we can enhance our mental health. So I would love for you two to share some of the things that you all do to enhance your mental health, or things that you share with others to do it. And I know it's going to look different for everyone. You may share something and someone out there may be like, yeah, that's not for me, but maybe you consider some of the other things mentioned. So maybe Dr. Gunter, if you can finish sharing that, and then Mona share as well.
Yeah, so journaling is one of the things that I often recommend that I don't think I've mentioned yet. And, there are people who are like, yeah, I don't like to write, or I don't know what to write, or I don't do a diary. And I say it's not like that. Think of it as a brain dump. We all need to dump and release whatever is going on inside of us in some way. And I think of journaling as a way to do that dump. And it doesn't matter what you write, doesn't matter how you write, but just getting it out of you and allowing yourself to have a space for release, I think is really important. Practicing gratitude is something that I know I have said, but I'm going to reiterate, because when you are able to focus on the things that you have in your life, it really can help you to shift your perspective. And that perspective shift can go a long way towards improving your mood and improving your mental health and the quality of your mental health. And so gratitude is not about looking at things with rose-colored glasses, and it's not about denying the reality of a situation. Gratitude is just being able to recognize that in the midst of challenge, adversity, and difficulty, there are still things that I can be grateful for. And there are still things that remain unchanged. And I think that's really important in the current situation that we're in as it relates to this pandemic. There's a lot that's been lost. There's a lot that has changed. And there's a lot that will be different as we continue to move through this. But there are also silver lining moments. And there are things that we can still be grateful for. There are things that remain unchanged. And there are opportunities that still live in the midst of this challenge.
Yes, that's what about you, Mona?
I love all of that. To build off of your point on journaling, I'm one of those people that doesn't always like to write. So I sometimes write in the little notes tab on my iPhone. Or sometimes I do voice memos, which sounds kind of weird, but like sometimes you just need to get it out your system, and like you can't write fast enough. So sometimes I'll make little voice memos to kind of get my thoughts out there. And then also I think what's been helpful for me is meditation. And so I know that's kind of a foreign concept to a lot of people. I only just discovered it like maybe 6 months ago. But I think you can start practicing mindfulness in your everyday life. And what that looks like is kind of taking your awareness and bringing it into the present moment, and to kind of stop thinking so much about the past and the future. So mindfulness can be easily practiced if you just go outside and you start to pay attention to everything that your senses are feeling. So what do you see? Do you see trees? Do you see birds? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you feel? And all of these things, kind of tapping into all of your senses, is going to really help you bring yourself into this specific moment. And so I oftentimes do that in my everyday life. Like I will be like on my rotations, and my like attending will be stressing me out, and I'll be sitting there just, you know, practicing mindfulness and doing a own little meditation in my head. And so try doing that to kind of introduce yourself to meditation. And then another huge thing for me has been yoga. I think that it's kind of like a form of meditation in itself, just the physical aspect of it. And so there's a ton of resources out there right now. So many people are doing free yoga Instagram lives or YouTube videos. So go do some exploring. Just literally Google yoga routine, and you will find so many things. And you don't need anything except your physical body. And so that's been big. And prayer has been really, really big. I'm in the middle of Ramadan right now, so Ramadan Mubarak to anybody celebrating. So that's really kind of helped me to stay grounded in my faith, and you know, just acknowledging that there's a higher power at play right now. And then something else I want to, eating habits. Eating habits are really important. Exercising really important. Those things, all physical and mental health, go hand in hand. So yeah.
So many good tools listed here and so many good resources. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. We have a couple more questions, and I do want to take a couple from the audience. Just want to say that, you know, we don't have to answer the question if it's something that we don't feel like we could, you know, really sort of provide enough insight on. We can just pass. But I'll go ahead and show a couple of questions, and then if one of you all would like to respond to it, that'd be cool. So Omar Adam said, why do people feel like they have to seek validation to feel and or be successful? Is it just a confidence thing? I don't know if either of you want to take that.
I think our society has shifted in a very interesting way, where external approval has become one of our markers of success. I mean, if you think about the world in which we live in via social media, everything is governed by likes and follows, quite literally. Like those are the words that are listed. And so I think sometimes we feel like we're more successful if we get more likes, we're more successful if we get more followers, if we get more retweets. And I think that mentality that we're seeing there in social media has translated into other parts of our life as well. So regardless of what we think about something, we could think something is fantastic, but we won't think that it's really wonderful unless other people think about it as well. So I think we put a lot of weight on, unnecessary weight on the external praise that we receive. And I think some of that is a function of how society has shifted, as opposed to us valuing things like our internal sense of peace, calm, happiness, the quality of our relationships. Those are markers of success as well. But what we tend to see emphasized more in our society is status, wealth, and success as it is defined by, again, likes and follows. So I think sometimes the world around us can affect how we feel and how we define success and other things like that. So one of the things that I would encourage is expand your definition of success. Like success does not just have to be defined by those outside of us, but we can define success based on what's important and what's valuable to you. And so I think when we do that, we're able to have a more balanced perspective on what's important. And I can appreciate and see the value in the things that I do, independent of how other people feel about it. But it's a process, and it takes some skill, because the world is geared toward seeking approval from others.
That is so real, so spot on. And I think your advice on that is really important. You know, how do we define success? And we have control to really, you know, change the way we define that. So thank you so much for that. And Mona, I think you were going to add something as well, or are you?
I think I echo everything that Dr. Gunter was saying. I think that it's just a function of our society, unfortunately, especially in Western society. And I think that it starts from a very young age, and it starts in childhood, where we start to feel like because we did all these good things, that makes us valuable. But I think my advice is to really start to acknowledge and affirm that you're valuable regardless of anything. You're valuable for just existing because you're a child of God. And so I think for me, that's been really helpful in kind of shifting my idea of success, because I can tell you, as somebody who's been successful in my professional career, none of that matters if you don't feel internally validated and internally fulfilled. It really does not matter. You outside accolades and grades and money and everything, that just, it doesn't harbor happiness. I think so. I think the more you start to shift your forms of validation internally, you'll be happier. And I also want to say, this is something I'm still working on. So I'm by no means an expert. I don't think any of us here are. I think it's a lifelong journey. So yeah.
Oh, it absolutely is a lifelong journey. Everything you all are saying, I'm just like, yes, for everything. Wow, thank y'all. Well, let me show some of the other comments that people are leaving here, just so we can kind of show you all who's in the chat. We had Mulatu saying he's watching from Milan City during this difficult time. Thank you for being here with us during these times. Someone said Open Path Collective is another good source for affordable therapy. I've heard of them. Great point there. Few people were saying, girls are awesome. We are all very proud of you. Thank you so much. Marta Tadesse, awesome humanitarian photographer and mental health advocate. She said, thank you so much for this. Our sister Saron, queen out there, she said, yes, gratitude is a must. And Keisha Carter said, love that idea earlier from one of your points there. And then we had another point here, gratitude is all thank you. Yes, thank you all. I know we got, again, people here from Philly, from Vegas, from Milan City, from Georgia, there were some other ones, but we just want to say thank you all for being a part of this conversation. Thank you for being present with us during these challenging times that we are living in. And I want to wrap it up, but I do want to end on a note of how you two are staying positive during these times. And when I say positive, I don't mean like everything is perfect. I don't mean everything is smooth, but I just mean the ability to even get up every day and still push forward. How do you do that in your lives right now? For anyone watching, who's going through a tough time, maybe we can learn something from your stories in this regard. So one of you all can take it from here.
For me, what's been helpful is just being kind to myself and just showing up for myself daily, and really just not being so hard on myself. Like, I think that in the beginning of this quarantine, there was this idea that this was going to be the most productive time because we're all going to be home. And I kid you not, I did nothing the first 4 weeks of this quarantine. And it, wasn't the greatest thing, but it happened. And I think that just taking each day for what it is, and, if you're having a bad day, then just accept it. It's okay. It's okay to have a bad day. And I just take it one day at a time. I think that's been my most useful thing. And like the yoga every day has been my kind of way of showing up for myself. So whatever that looks like for you, maybe that can be painting every day. If you like painting, or if you like writing, or you like singing or dancing, whatever that is, just make sure to check in with yourself and do those things that make you happy, or maybe even discover new things that make you happy.
Love that. Yes.
I would absolutely echo that. I think if we are able to extend the level of grace and compassion that we would extend to others, to ourselves, I think that helps us in navigating the times that we're in, because it really does require us to be compassionate and have a level of self-compassion, and to, like you said, Mona, kind of just take one day at a time. And when you said that piece about at the beginning, people were communicating this message that this is supposed to be the most productive time in your life. Like, no, because we're in a crisis. Like, we're at home because there's a global pandemic happening, right? And so I think it's important to name that and to hold on to that reality, because I think that is what allows us to actually give ourselves grace. Is every day you might not feel extremely motivated. Every day I don't engage in the self-care strategies that I mentioned to you all. Every day I don't feel like engaging in those self-care strategies. And so it's not a matter of having a bad day, but we don't want anyone to stay in that place indefinitely. That's what we're really trying to think through and trying to say. It's okay to not be okay. We all have not okay days, but we just don't want to live in those not okay days. And so extending the same grace and compassion toward yourself that you extend to others, trying to engage in at least one act of self-care every day, even if it's just for 15 minutes. Every little bit helps and every little bit adds up. And really trying to hold on to the perspective of being able to see the opportunities that live in this challenge. There are opportunities still to practice gratitude, to practice your faith, to connect with the people that you care about, and to just be still. You know, sometimes we don't need to do anything, but sometimes the art of just being still and pausing is rejuvenating and restorative for us. And so giving ourselves permission to tune in to that internal voice and do what it is that we need to do for ourselves, I think is important.
About tuning into your internal voice, because I think that that's really scary for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And sometimes our internal dialogue is really negative. And so I just want to acknowledge that is a very scary experience. But the more you learn to accept that internal dialogue, the more that internal dialogue like loses its power. The more you kind of allow yourself to sit in that, okay, this is really hard, like, and accept it, it loses its power over you. And I think that you know, like Dr. Gunter was saying, you don't want to stay in that space for a long time, because at that point it becomes depression, clinical anxiety, and things that really you need to seek out help. But I just want to echo that. Really love that point that you made.
Yeah, we got to develop our internal cheerleaders, right? Our internal critics are loud and they are very well developed. But developing that internal cheerleader, that internal advocate, that internal voice that truly knows what we need, the one who knows the self-care strategies that make us feel better, that's the voice that we have to try to tune into a little bit more. So I agree 100%, because that critic is developed, but sometimes we need to, you know, turn the mic down on the critic and, you know, listen to our internal advocate and the voice that knows what we need.
Yeah. Woo! Y'all are feeding my spirit and my soul right now. I don't even know what to say.
I agree. This has been healing for me. I don't know about y'all.
Yes,
that's great.
Yeah, and I was sharing with these two earlier before we went live, everyone. But I was supposed to kick this off in the beginning of May, but honestly, we were just going through things in our family, experiencing, you know, sadness and grief, and I just had to put it on hold, you know, because I wasn't there mentally. Like, I just wasn't able to deliver in that way. And it's okay to put things on hold. It's okay to come back to them another day. It's okay to just take a break. There's nothing wrong with that. You move at your own pace. You know, one of my friends, Robino in Seattle, always says, set your pace, don't react to the race. And I love that, because like we can all, you know, move how we want to. You know, it's okay, like Mona was saying earlier, to have a bad day. You're going to have a bad day. And I love Dr. Gunter's point too about just saying, yeah, that's okay, but, you know, we got to make sure that we don't keep you there. You know, none of us want to see each other in that space, you know, permanently. And so really important to make sure you're you know, getting the support you need. There's so much help out there. And I know someone else shared a program. Keisha Carter said EAP programs at employer. I see you nodding your head. Do you want to comment on that, Dr. Gunter?
Yeah, I want to shout out to Keisha. Keisha's one of my best friends, so it's very cool to see her in here. So hey, Keisha. But yes, for those who have employee assistant programs through your employers, they're absolutely a great resource, because oftentimes you can get a certain number of free services through that benefit that's offered through your job. So if you are not familiar whether or not they have them, just contact your HR, and HR should be able to tell you whether or not you have EAP benefits and what they are, so you can take advantage of those services as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Keisha, and best friend for being here with us today. Awesome. Well, just got a few more comments here from people. You girls are awesome. And then Sirach in Canada said, self-love is not selfish. Take care of yourself and you will serve humanity better.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh gosh.
Amen to that. Thank you so much to each of you for, being a part of this conversation, contributing your light. I would love for you all to share how people can stay connected with you all, keep in touch with you all, and any final message you want to share before we wrap up.
So you can reach me on, let's see, what am I on? Twitter is where the public can reach me at Dr. Kensa, DrKensa. That's my handle. And I'm trying to post there more frequently. So that's one place you can reach me. And then I have a website, www.drkensa.com. And you can check out information there as well. I guess in my final thought, I would just say, be kind to yourselves. Extend compassion to yourselves and those around you. The only way we get through this situation is together. And so just try to take care of yourselves and each other and extend grace in this process, and just one day at a time. That's all we got. We don't necessarily have to know exactly what tomorrow brings. But if we just take one day at a time, we'll get to tomorrow. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I agree 100%. What about you, Mona?
I totally agree. Kind of my last little piece of my last little spiel. I think that we're all connected by this common struggle, and I think that continuing to remind myself of that helps me feel less alone. And so just remember, you're not alone in this. We're all struggling. Some of us are struggling more than others, unfortunately. And if you're one of those people who's struggling more, reach out for help. There's nothing wrong with it. And even if you aren't dealing with direct grief right now, your emotions are still valid too. So, all of us are having an experience right now, and all of these experiences are valid. And just like Dr. Gunter was saying, just continue to show compassion towards each other and towards yourself, and let's just spread love. I think love is the answer to everything. And you can reach me at White Coat and Curls on Instagram. So just White Coat and Curls, nothing else, just the words. And then I also have a YouTube channel that is specifically for mentorship to anybody interested in pursuing a field in medicine, specifically trying to go to medical school. If you look me up on YouTube, it's White Coat and Curls on YouTube as well. And I have some videos on there for anyone who's pre-med. So
awesome. Well, please stay connected, everyone. Just to wrap up with some comments. Aliyah said, this was amazing. Thank you so much for this much needed talk. Well, hey, thank you for being here with us. Sadon said, be kind to yourself. That was something you all mentioned throughout this. We have another Gunter.
There's my sister-in-law. Hey, Dorian.
Hi, Dorian. For tuning in, and just great info there. And this was amazing and informative. Thank you, guys. Well, hey, thank you all for being here with us. Thank you to both of you for your words of encouragement, your advice, and your light. To all of you who are tuning in right now, we just want to send our love. We want you to know that we are going to get through this together. We know it's tough. Don't be so hard on yourself. And if you're having a tough day, just know that you will push through, and give yourself the grace that you need. Give yourself time that you need to heal, and just lean in on those around you, and know that every day isn't going to be perfect, but just keep pushing forward, and know you are not alone and you are loved. All right. Well, that's it from us for today. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'll have all their information in the caption so you can stay connected. And we just want to say thank you again to our guests. So everybody clap it up with me for our guests.
Thank you. Thanks to y'all.
Clap it up for y'all for showing up.
Clap it up for y'all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, everybody.